Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pestikas. I'm so glad you're here. With the Brave Women at Work podcast, you'll get the resources and tips along with real-world stories and humor to empower and inspire you to take bolder and braver actions in your career and life. Welcome to the Brave Women at Work podcast. This is your host, Jen Pestikas. I'm so glad you're here. Well, hey everyone, how are you doing out there? So we're in the midst of the summer wind down, as I call it, in the Pestikas household as this podcast launches. So my husband, John, and I, we take semi-regular walks around the neighborhood, and we were kind of doing our loop around. And we were just talking the other day, and we are so elated, everyone, that the kids are almost back to school. Do you feel me? Now, I have to say we've had an amazing summer, and it's been fun to have some unstructured time, but it can get tiring after a while as we become the Uber or the Lyft, whatever you want to enter, here, taxi drivers for our kids, especially our teenager, Charlotte. So this is what we hear on the regular. Dad, can I go here? Mom, can I have a sleepover at this friend's house like in the next hour? It's fun and it's relentless at the same time. And I've been thinking about this word in the season of my life. It's from Glennon Doyle and it's brutiful. So again, it's brutiful. It's a mashup of brutal and beautiful. So you can have times and periods of both. So my husband and I, we cannot wait for a bit more structure once again. So fall, come on, fall. Let's come on to Chicagoland. So parenting, caregiving, all of the things, most things in life, they take grit. And so when I was thinking of grit, I thought immediately of Angela Duckworth's book of the same name. But then I asked myself as I was preparing for the show, what is grit? Like, what is the definition? When I hear that word, I just feel it in my body. I just feel like, kind of like grit, right? Strength. But I wanted to look it up. So I went to, our trusty Google and I looked it up for everyone. So the actual definition of grit means courage and resolve, strength of character. So after thinking about it, I'm like, I want more grit in my life. I want my children to have grit. So when my guest, Dr. Emily Williams-Knight, mentioned that she loves to talk about the concept of grit, I said, game on, let's do this. So during today's podcast, Dr. Emily and I chatted about how Emily's formative years as a child of a military family helped shape who she is today, what grit means, and how we can cultivate it for ourselves. How you can start your career in one area and end up in an entirely different place. So if you don't know, kind of fun fact about me, I was a French and Spanish double major. So think about that. I was a French and Spanish double major. Then I was in corporate. Now I run a podcast. I'm also a coach. So man, you can start one area and, wind your road wherever life and your heart take you. How Emily has managed her own personal bouts with imposter syndrome, how Emily led through the COVID-19 period to keep the restaurant space one of Texas' largest industries moving forward, how Emily is working to help with the childcare crisis in the restaurant industry, and what systems Emily has in place to manage her big career and life. So here is more about Emily. Dr. Emily Williams-Knight assumed the role as president and CEO of the Texas Restaurant Association and the Texas Restaurant Foundation in August of 2019. She is nationally known for her steadfast service-driven leadership, which was key to securing government waivers and federal support that saved thousands of restaurants during the COVID-19 pandemic. With over 20 years of global career experience and as the face of Texas's largest private sector employer, Knight continues to drive legislative success at all levels of government. At the same time, Knight's background in business and education has driven the Texas Restaurant Association to expand its member and community benefit offerings to ensure Texans of every background can build a healthy and fulfilling career in the food service industry. She has been recognized by the Dallas Business Journal, Nation's Restaurant Newsreader Picks, American Way Magazine, and Dallas College. Knight holds multiple degrees, including a doctorate in higher education leadership, and serves on various boards for organizations that serve the hospitality industry and veterans. She resides in North Texas with her husband and their 18-year-old twin daughters and two rescue dogs. So, if the podcast Brave Woman at Work has helped you personally or professionally, please be sure to share it with a family member, a friend, a colleague, a neighbor, whoever you would like. And then, of course, those ratings and reviews, they matter. So just like I say every week, if you could do me a solid, you could do me a favor and leave a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. I would so appreciate it. Also, if you've downloaded one of my freebies, but not others, go back around and check them out at bravewomenatwork.com. The three freebies out there today are 24 career and leadership affirmations, 5 ways to managing your imposter syndrome, and getting paid, 10 negotiation tips. Finally, I also have 1 to 2 spots left for one-on-one coaching this fall. So if you're looking for support in reaching your professional goals as you wrap up 2025 and plan for 2026, can you believe I'm saying that? Schedule a discovery call on my website at bravewomenatwork.com. So how it works is we do kind of a little mini dive on what your career goals, any challenges you're facing. I'll explain the coaching process and we'll see if it's a fit for you. And then that 30 minutes is completely complimentary. So we can see who is my last 1 to 2 spot fillers for this fall schedule and this fall kind of space. So, all right, let's welcome Emily to the show. Well, hey, Emily, welcome to Brave Woman at Work. How are you today?
I'm well. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Oh, I'm well. I wanted to start to like learn more about you, your background story, and how you've gotten to where you are. So I know that's a big question, so you can start wherever you'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, you think and now at my age, I guess you're much more reflective. I feel like I ran through my career, you're just constantly running and
Mhm.
building, and you're not even really sure where you're headed, but you just keep working as hard as you can. And I think now I've crossed that magical threshold into my 50s, and I don't know if it's perspective that comes. I don't know if it's just wisdom. I'm not sure, but I think if I think back, I do think so much of sort of what got me here was developed in my much earlier years, right? So
Mm.
childhood, really. I think no matter what college I went to or my first job, it really comes back to like how I was formed as a young person. And I think that's a big part of it was being in the military, right? Being a military
Mhm.
brat. And especially my father was on submarines. And so those are very long deployments back in the Cold War. So if you think about being gone 4 to 6 months,
Wow.
being home a month, but also the disruption that comes with being a child in the service then, right? So my entire kindergarten class, 50% could get reassigned at a moment's notice. So a submarine would move from Connecticut to Georgia, and those kids were gone. Like there's no like, oh, how sad, let's sit around and cry about it. It was like, it's a duty you're going to serve, whether you're the member or the family. And so I think if I think about my career and some of the risks I've taken and some of the just crazy jobs I took that people said don't take and how I got through all that, I think a lot of it comes from that very disruptive, really high expectation of keeping your emotions together, right? Getting through things, service above, above yourself. I think that really started as, before I was 5 years old. And then
Wow.
maintained the first 25 years of my life as somehow a military dependent.
Wow. Okay. So, how did that? Because we talked a lot about grit, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, we're gonna have so much to dive into. And you were like bringing out the word grit. I'm like, uh-oh, because I was just talking to my 13-year-old daughter who has not had that disruption, thank goodness, right? She has
Mm.
had, gone to the same school, all the, school system, that kind of stuff. And I told her recently, I'm like, honey, you've got to develop grit. And she's like, what's grit? I'm like, oh, we have to have a conversation about what that
I
is.
never call my girls because they're sick of hearing about it.
I know they're probably like, oh, I'm so sick of it, mom. But is that where, the grit was formed? Because I know this is foundational to how you lead and how you move through the world.
Yeah, and I think, I started researching grit back, believe it or not, when I was in Illinois. And so I
Hmm.
heard Angela Duckworth. I got invited to a presentation, and I thought, what is this word grit? I really couldn't put a name for what I believe was sort of setting a goal and never giving up. And then Dr. Duckworth put a name on it, right? It was called grit. And I sat through the symposium and I went, oh my gosh, this is what the world is missing. And this is what women are missing, which is it's not where you were born and what university you went to and who all that matters. But at the end of the day, your ability to figure out what you want out of your life, and whether that be a small goal, a big goal in some cases, I want to be a CEO, I want to run a marathon, whatever that is, it's really about that everyday persistence towards that goal and not letting anything get in the way of giving up. And I do think, we didn't have sick days as kids, as one example, right? There was no like
Mm.
day off. It was like either your temperature is 111 or you're bleeding. But other than that, the response was always there's someone serving their country. You think they don't have a choice to get up today? And it was like, oh my gosh. But that idea that your job was your job, and when you were expected to do something, you did it until completion. And I think that idea of not like so many times people just quit before they get the end result. And sometimes it could be hours or days before they get to that goal. And so I do think as a child, there were no soft landings. Doesn't
Mm.
mean there wasn't love. I had tremendous love and support from both of my parents, but there was an expectation that it wasn't about how I felt that day. It was really about what is the commitment I made? What's the promise I made to myself or others? And nothing would get in the way from achieving it. And I do think that's played to later in my career when things have gotten really hard and I've had those days where I want to give up. It's just a reminder of like, no, because you have a plan. And if you give up, the plan goes away. So I do think grit
Mm.
started when I was young, but I've used it throughout my career and now, frankly, speak about it so women understand that it's the one thing you can develop. If you're not born with grit, you learn it, but you also can develop it at 10, 20, 30, 50.
Mm.
And it helps you achieve your goals. I think that's the best part about grit.
Well, and we like brushed over. I want to kind of U-turn a little bit on your career arc. Like, tell us a little bit. I mean, yes, we can go to LinkedIn, but it's always so much. It's better to hear from you directly. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your career arc because you've had quite an amazing journey.
Yeah, I think amazing and sort of like when you look at it on paper, I think you're like, whoa, it's interesting. I always want to, I think always want to tell people though, is that I was not a great student in high school, right? Like you look at the Emily today and you're like, oh, she seems like she has it together. I was this squirrely kid that in the fifth grade, the letter that went home that my mom actually gave me the day I graduated from college said, Dear Mrs. Williams, I wish there was something positive we could say about Emily today, but so far she's disrupted everyone in arm's reach. She refuses to do her classwork and she cut the roof of her mouth with her ruler because she can't stop playing with it. Right? No, like I'm
Oh,
not kidding.
wow.
That is like and God rest that teacher's soul. We did not see eye to eye. But my point is, like, I got to high school and they wanted to send me to the Career and Technical Center as a junior to beautician school. Well, if anyone knows me, I'm about as simple as it comes, right? Like doing any kind of makeup and hair is not my thing. And people that are wonderful, that wasn't me, but they didn't know what to do with someone with all this sort of energy and curiosity. And so I
Mm.
channeled that into hospitality. I love to serve, I love to take care of people. And so I went to university for that. But then, I had another challenge, which is I met and married my high school sweetheart who happened to be in the military.
Oh,
And so here
wow.
I go, right? Like we all do.
Again.
Yeah, we're like, it's horrible, blah, blah. And then you just sign up again. So I ended up being stationed in Key West, Florida. And so what do? The job I can get out of college, out of Boston University, was an assistant manager at Pizza Hut. Now
Wow.
my friends are going abroad. They're, Singapore. And I'm literally going to Key West to be an assistant manager the year the stuffed crust pizza came out. Like grueling
Mm.
work, smelled like cheese, not pretty, but cut my teeth and frankly grew respect for people who work in this industry, right? Realize how hard they work. And then, I love to teach. I love to help others. And so my mom, who at that point had worked her way up to be a community college president, said, go teach. So at 25, Walt Connell, the dean, gave me a chance and I started teaching
Wow.
and, went into education. And then I think just have taken every job maybe that looked hard or people said, oh, you don't want that job, you're going to fail. And I just took it. And I think it's been part of the success of my career.
Yeah, but you also like were leading, it was Kimball College, I believe. I mean, you have like really, I mean,
Yes.
I'm sure, like my family, if my family were here, they'd be like, you worked really hard. I'm sure there were lucky breaks in there. There were relationships in there, but I don't believe in that. I mean, you worked hard. You had grit to get to where you are.
There is no doubt. And as you said, when I became the president of Kendall College, I think I was 37. And
Yes.
I was amongst these college presidents in Illinois that are incredible, right? And so I will admit, the first day I showed up, I got this big office. I was sitting at my desk. I had no idea what I was doing. And I say that because, yes, I had great instinct. I knew how to lead. I know how to make great choices, right? I know how to kind of look at a landscape and decide which direction to go in. But as far as leading a comprehensive college, right? Like that wasn't in my wheelhouse, but I took it because I've always believed that if you take the risk, if you jump, the net will appear. You may not
Mm,
see the net, but it was like, what's the worst that can happen? Do I believe enough in myself that I can figure this out? I immediately went and worked towards my doctorate for 4 years because I didn't want
mm.
to be on an uneven playing field. I wanted to learn, and then I went international, right? And I traveled the world speaking only English because I knew that with sort of a joyful heart and a smart mind that I could work anywhere in the world. And so I would transit all, you name, pick a country, right? We were doing business there. And I just, figured, why not me? Right? I always ask myself that, like, why not me? Why does someone else get to do this? And that sort of helps kill that imposter syndrome that it shouldn't be me. Instead, I've always said to myself, why not me? And that helps a lot with that negative talk that we get as women.
So I was about to ask you, like, okay, well, the imposter had to show up somewhere, whether it was
Oh,
at the college or whether it was like traveling overseas. And like, it sounds like your reframe was like, why not me? Was there anything else that you used to kind of keep that at bay?
I still have imposter syndrome, right? I think
Mm,
that's really important. I think that it's something that we are told that we will get over it, right? You get to a certain point in your career and that doesn't exist. I
hmm
haven't found that. I still have that voice that will come up. Maybe I have a really important interview, like a media interview,
hmm
and I study the topic as much as I can, and it doesn't go well. Your first thought isn't always, well, it didn't go well, that's fine. It's, oh shoot, maybe I wasn't the right person to do it, right? And you have to shut that down. And the only way you can is to be really reflective about the moments that you did overcome and do something hard, right? I
hmm
think for me, it's acknowledging, I think is where I am in that kind of imposter, like acknowledging when that comes out and being able to quiet it. But it still exists for me, even as CEO of an organization. I still have those thoughts.
See, I really love, thank you so much for being vulnerable and honest because I think there is this notion out there in this space that like you can kind of contain it or kill it or, like, but it's
No.
something that, I'll tell my clients, like, it's like a new level. When you level up, it's like new level, new devil or new challenge, right? And the imposter
Yes.
will come up again and you just have to know it's there. Like, I actually did another interview recently and she called it her imposter monster. And I thought that was so funny. I'm like, oh, that's fun. That's fun. Like it shows up again, but you just have to have the tools in place to actually be like, okay, like I'm going to look back at the balance of my achievements versus when I may have quote unquote failed or learned, probably, better termed to kind
Yes.
of get it to kind of hang out and like, kind of lay down and let you take the wheel
Yes.
again.
And keep I had something for a long time, and I'm gonna admit this, I think you're the first one I've told this to, but it's called an I dig me file. And it sits on my desk. It's right here. And in my Adigme file are any types of emails that really showcased a thank you. It's a letter from maybe a restaurant member that appreciated what I did. It's a copy of an award I won, right? And I keep this file. And honestly, when I have those moments where I'm like, gosh, like, do I want to keep doing this? Right? Like the hard days, right? I obviously spent a lot of time in politics and I actually pulled out the iDigme file.
Oh,
And
I love
remind
it.
you because we forget, right? We're terrible as women internalizing any types of accolades or affirmation.
Yep.
And we also don't ask for it, but honestly, we need it. Like, I understand that when good things happen, I'm going to always push it to my team. But those moments when someone says, like, hey, listen, you have a great team, but I want to say that you did this, it is so meaningful. And as you get to the top, it does not happen often. They expect you just to just know that you're doing a good job. That I dig me file for a lot of women, I just think for me, it just reminds me of why I'm working so hard every day and that I'm competent to be in the job.
Hmm.
And everyone can create theirs. You just save all those good news about your career, and then you have something to reflect on.
So I've never heard it called I Dig Me. I love that. So I use it's called brag file or the
Oh,
smile
sure.
file. The
Yes,
smile
it's
file, which
very
makes
same
you so
thing.
it's the same, it's very similar, but you just say I dig me. And I love that at your level, you're like, I got an I dig me file. So like if you have an I dig me file, like everybody needs an I dig me file.
Every woman needs an iDigme file, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I wrote something, I'll admit to you, like 2 weeks ago. I was in one of those dumpy, sad moods, right? Like no
Yeah.
one appreciates me. I'm exhausted. Nobody cares. My family, nobody. Pathetic. But we all go there. And
Yes.
I dug it out and I was like, you know what, Emily, stop. Like you're fine. Don't catastrophize things. Things are okay. You're doing a great job. You're creating this noise in your own head, right? But I
Hmm.
wrote this whole, I was going to go on LinkedIn and be like, I'm tired and nobody cares. Honestly. And then thankfully I'm mature enough to go, that's probably not a good idea. But it was like for all the tired women, right? And then I kind
Yes.
of just reflected for a moment and I was like, no, I don't need to hear I'm doing a good job. I need to pull myself up, right? I just think that is when we just don't talk about that. We don't talk about those days when we're just like, this is BS, right? It's too much. I'm tired. We have to be perfect every day. And that's a really hard place to live.
Yes. And, one other thing I wanted to I've never really talked about this on the podcast, but you said something really important as you get to higher levels is like this accolades bypass. So, like when you have large teams, like I know you have a monstrous team. I have a team now about like 60-ish, right? Like underneath me, big enough, right? Well, so I'm
Big.
always like, passing to them, right? Because I want them to get like, because that's what leaders do, right? Is they like give their people opportunities and they give
Absolutely.
them kudos and give them visibility. But then like we keep getting drained. Like our bank of I dig me keeps like getting sucked down because we're not like saying, I did awesome because my team did awesome. We're just telling everyone that my team did awesome and forgetting about us.
I think this is such an important thing for us to be talking about because I think I've also noticed, like, I have a board of directors, right? And when good things happen, and I don't know, it'd be a great research study. I always hear from my female board members. I don't hear from my male board members. And so I don't know if that is part of it too, that idea of just stopping to say, right? And then you think, am I being selfish? Like I'm the CEO. I shouldn't need any, great job. But then the human side, if you are a servant leader, you do need that filled. So you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuck, right? Like you're told
Mm-hmm.
be mature, you shouldn't have to get any feedback. But then if you're pouring yourself into your work, into your people, sometimes you do need to hear that. And it's not one of those like, hey, this happened today, waiting for someone to say something, right? It's that out of nowhere when someone goes, hey, I see you. I noticed the work you're doing and I just want to say thank you, right? That does not happen at our level. Um,
No, and it's a double-edged sword. And I'll tell you one other thing before we move on is that I've had employees, right, non-named, that'll say, I'm trying to give them my seat because that's the ultimate leadership is that
yes.
like you move on to do something else. Like I've had people say like, "Well, I want your job." I'm like, "Sweet, take it, go for it."
Great.
Like it doesn't threaten me. I'm like, "Sweetness, like I'm going to do something else now." But I've had people on the opposite say, oh, even though you give us credit, the head, grand chief poobah like thinks it's you, right? So it's like this double bind of I'm trying to like pave the way for you, but then employees may think that like I'm the one that's taken the credit, maybe because like a prior leader took credit or whatever, which also drags like especially women down because we're like, I'm trying to pave the way for you, but people's like
Right.
reaction is that they think you're taking the credit. So it makes us even more maybe diminutive or more small or trying to give more energy to these folks. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it's also sort of I think sometimes people think what we do is easy.
Hmm.
I do. I think that there's the notion of individual contributors that are, and I'm very blessed, I have to say, like you. I have the most amazing team. I've always hired people better than me in core functional
Mm,
areas.
so awesome.
I,
Hmm.
I think you have to have the humility to do that, and I'm better for it. But I think sometimes what misses from the overall equation or is missing is sort of what lands on our plate, right? Which is the ultimate responsibility and accountability for every life on our team, for every issue we tackle, for every challenge that gets to our desk, right? Like there is a decision making and responsibility that comes with leading an organization, not only your external stakeholders, but the lives of the people that work for you. And that can be draining, especially if you care deeply. And I think that's
Hmm.
the hard part is we often don't, we're not great. We don't provide enough grace to leaders, whether it be, any organization. We just assume they have it easy. And I think that's something that's been a misnomer, especially for women that maybe have two full-time jobs, right? They're at their office all day,
Hmm.
come home and play a second full-time job as a working mom.
Hmm.
We don't have a lot of kindness, grace, or sympathy for people that are trying to manage all of that. We just don't, and we need to do better.
That's so good. So spinning back around to grit, I wanted, we've talked about it at high level, but you have it standing for an acronym. So what I saw, I think it was in either your bio or on a site somewhere. So tell me if this is still accurate. So grit stands for guts, resilience, initiative, tenacity. Is that correct?
Correct. And I believe that was defined by Dr. Angela Duckworth when
Oh,
she
it
did.
was.
It
Okay.
was. And so when
Okay.
she sort of determined what this was, she was doing a study and really determined that there were two functional things about grit. One is that you can learn grit, which is that ability to set a goal and to persevere over the long term. And so grit is that ability not to quit. And what they have found in many different types of studies since then are like public school districts or where kids didn't give up functionally did better than kids that had every type of support system in place, right? So every time they failed, they pick them back up again. This was where students just literally put their head down and said, I will persevere. I will, example, learn accounting. That the grit and that grit mindset, which is a key component, is it's not a stayed, but it's a transformational mindset. So it's not I know enough accounting. It's what else can I learn? I failed. That's
Mm,
terrible. What did I learn from failing? How can I fix and go forward? So it's a closed versus an open mindset. And that sort of open mindset is a game changer for people. It's constantly failing forward and failing towards your dreams and taking those steps forward towards those goals. And a lot of people are in that closed or fixed mindset, right? I am who I am. I can't change. I've been dealt this deck of cards. I'm not smart when it comes to math. I'm never going to get a better job, right? Instead of someone who says, I have what it takes to learn math. I have what it takes to move ahead. And I speak specifically for women, right? Because usually math
hmm.
is where we get tripped up. I do have the skill set. I do have the knowledge. What else can I learn, right? What else can I do to get ahead? It's that constant growth mindset that is a huge part of grit. And that growth mindset can literally change your career. No
Mm.
doubt. Doesn't matter where you're sitting today. That growth, forward-looking mindset can definitely change your career.
So we have to, throw in here the famous book Mindset by, I believe it's Carol Dweck. So if
Yes.
anyone hasn't read that one, that is an awesome recommendation
Great
because
book.
she's the
Yes.
one who actually founded, closed versus
Yeah,
open
fixed
mindset or the growth mindset, fixed versus growth
growth.
mindset. Yes. And do you think that we can develop grit at any stage in our career?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. I think it's the one thing that you can determine for yourself, right? It's the one thing that you can, two things have to happen, I believe. One, you have to know what is it that you're striving for, right? What's that
Hmm.
goal in your life? I don't care what it is. is my long-term goal is to work at the zoo and be the first person the animals see in the morning,
It
right?
is so fun.
Like honestly, like I want to be that like, hey guys, not going to happen in the short term, but kind of what do you have to do to get there, right? But it's sort of, do you want to run a marathon? Do you want to become the next chief financial officer? Do you want to become the, parent room mom? Like, what is it? But
Mm.
it's often those long-term goals, right? Like I'm here today, but I want to get here. And then it's putting that plan together and feeling like you have that growth mindset to do whatever it takes. It's the one skill you can learn. People, they just quit too soon. They don't stick through things when things get hard. I remember taking some jobs that were, I mean, I was told like, don't do that. It's a horrible job. And I was like, if I can do that, well, then what else can I do? And so I'd,
Hmm.
moved with 11-month-old twin daughters to the West
Wow.
Coast in a shambles of a situation and figured, shoot, if I can do that, then what else can I do? Right. But everyone was like, you can't move. You have no help. You have no family in Colorado. Like, what are you? You're nuts. And I think the more people said that, the more I was like, well, if I can do that, my goal is to be here. And if I can do this, then I'm going to get there. So I'm going to do this. And kind of went against the odds, right? A little bit of intuition, and a
Yeah,
great
but you know
support.
what? There's something amazing in that because most people, and me included, right? Like where I've read about this with Elizabeth Gilbert, like familial or tribal shame, where like the family will shame you back into submission, where you stay with like the tribe or
Yes,
your friends. Like, and this is like why I just learned this is that we have to be very protective of our dreams because and our
yes.
intuitive nudges because even the people we love, like I was totally misinformed. And then we'll get back to grit is that I thought that I could tell my family and like my dear friends, like everything I ever wanted in my life. And I was like, like you got to be
No,
kind of like really protective because they mean well, like love you family out there, love my friends, but like they're afraid and sometimes your dreams will trigger someone else's fears. So what comes out as
absolutely.
love as protection is actually harmful for you and your intuitive nudges.
I could not agree more. I remember the day I decided to make that move. My brother and his wife at the time were welcoming their first child. And I was sitting in the waiting room and I was like, this is probably a great time to tell them that we're moving. Because I'm like, okay, stress is high. Let's just add to it. And the reaction from her family was like, what? That's crazy. Like, that's not going to work. Why would you ever do that? And then and listen to all the things that could go wrong. But
Yeah,
for me, I think you just said something so powerful, which is only you get to determine what you want out of your life. And at the end of the
right.
day, keep that close. That is not something you need to advertise and get 100 opinions on. I learned that day. You need to pick a select group of people that you trust and who get you, that give you what you need, whether it's good or bad advice. I think we tend to committee shop when we want to make hard decisions, and then we end up with the answer of the mob, which doesn't always align with what our values are.
Yeah, I learned that. I guess I was in my 40s. I'm a late student, but hey, you said you can learn grit at any time. I learned like dream protection late
I
too. So
love that dream protection. I'm going to use that
yeah,
now.
dream protection insurance. Anyway,
I love it.
okay, so speaking about like rough times, like I was sitting there thinking about I went to the website, with what you do today, and I'm like, how are you doing this? So I saw like on LinkedIn you started as the CEO and it's called the Texas, is it Restaurant
Restaurant
Association?
Association.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, you started in 2019, probably
Oof,
like, oh yeah, I
bad
got
timing.
this. Yeah, like just that little timing. Then COVID hits. Now you're guiding, and have been guiding 56,000 restaurants through. I still think unprecedented times.
Yes.
How you doing? How you doing all this?
Yeah. This is going to sound crazy, but honestly, the COVID period was the greatest part of my entire career. And so
Wow.
I took this role and it was a very difficult transition. That is to put it mildly, right? So I had replaced
Yes.
someone that had been here decades. Stepped in as the first female to lead the organization, which always comes
Mhm.
with challenges, in 85 years. But I can tell you in my first 6 months, I could not figure out what the value of the organization was. I didn't understand what we were doing for our members, why
Mm,
people were paying us to be members. We did good work over the years. The organization is very well respected, but in my humble opinion, we had kind of lost our way. So fast forward to trying to get my footing, having never been to the Capitol, never met the governor, had worked in Illinois politics, but not Texas, very different,
hmm
and get the call from the governor's chief of staff essentially saying, I'm new and you're new. And if we work together, don't know what's going to happen, but we're going to get through this. And something that happened for me was that is where I've always said I love to serve, but like I'm made to serve. Like I am made to fight for people who don't have a
mm,
voice. I am made to represent people to go get what they need. Like that's how I'm wired. And I think the pandemic allowed me to be the caretaker for 55,000 businesses at the time and to demand what they needed to be successful and to do it in a bipartisan fashion. So for me, exhausting, but so incredibly rewarding, like down to my soul. It was to serve
mm.
those. And in Texas, we obviously had loss, but nothing like so much of the country because we just did a really good job of protecting our members and our community.
Okay, so that comes like we've kind of gone a little bit like around, right? We're talking about caring as a leader, being compassionate as a
Oh,
leader, right? Like really taking care of our people, our clients, restaurants, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. So
yep.
I have to ask you though, talking about multiple jobs, like I don't even know how many jobs you had, right? So you're taking care of 55,000, now 56,000 restaurants, and you're a working mom. It's a male dominated industry. Like, what was that like?
I get, you know what? I never, when I took this job, I think this is an important point. When I took the role, I had flown in from London the night before
hmm
my final interview, landed, coached my twin daughter's basketball game because I'm a diehard sports person, got up the next morning. So it's like, I don't know, to my body, I don't know, 6 hours later, went to sleep, got up, took the 5 a.m. to Austin, interviewed, flew home, was standing in the airport 5 hours later, probably didn't even know where I was at the point. But I remember the phone call that came in. It was from the chair of the search committee. And he said, thank you so much. We've made our selection. We want to offer you the job. And
Wow.
I said, I have one question before I accept. Did you make this choice based on me being a female? And he said, I'm sorry. And he said, are you picking me because you need a woman? And he said, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anyone knew if you're a woman or a man. We just saw you as an incredibly capable leader that would help the
Good
organization.
answer.
And so whether I believed it at the moment or not, right? I had to know because in my entire career, and it could be people say I have blinders. I have never felt completely disadvantaged by being a female. I have
Hmm.
felt at times that I was put in a very difficult situation, whether it be when everyone was going out to, believe it or not, the strip club and I couldn't go in. And
Oh, I hear you. I've been in financial services for 25
oh,
years.
so
Go ahead.
you get it, right? And so
Yeah.
people are like, oh, good for you not going. Well, yeah, but they're all talking about business and I'm sitting in my Hilton hotel room.
Yep.
And so I've had all of those. The story, right? Someone who doesn't do something, I've had all that. But as far as my career and promotion opportunities on my merit, I had not really faced that. And so when I came into this role, what I was not ready for was based on my gender, that there are still today people who do not like me or think that I am capable. It does not matter what I've delivered. It does not matter. We're probably the top association in the nation for restaurants. I've had to accept that based on my gender, they don't like me and or don't think I'm capable. That's been a hard reality in the transition into a role that was, whether it be in Texas, I don't know what it might be, but that's hard to accept. But if you don't accept it, you can't get past it. And so for
Mm,
me, I've had to accept that and I've had to say those individuals over there, they're not on the Emily fan wagon, and I just need to simply move around them and not try to bring them on board, right? It's just a no. And that's really hard for someone who is a servant leader and who's a pleaser. And I
mm-hmm.
think really hard for a lot of women. But that has been the greatest realization and frankly has allowed me to just be the leader I want to be because I'm not trying to be all things to all people when there's an audience that clearly will never be fans of Emily Knight. That
Mm.
acceptance has been very empowering for me.
Okay, so I've got still learning to do there. So I think it's amazing because most women would probably, I don't want to say most, but many of us, women and men, probably would crumble. This is where grit comes back around again. Like they don't have that buy-in and then they start to waver in belief in themselves, or like the
Yeah.
imposter monster, to that credit of that other guest, right, will come back in. Like it's a trigger for people because they want to be liked. We're communal beings, right? Especially when you're
Yes.
talking about servant leadership. So I have to ask you selfishly, what about when the resistance? So, like, you've got folks over there, maybe you've had times in your own team. What about when you have resistance like this in your own team, like where you've inherited someone that's kind of a bad apple? Or, we've always done it this way, those people. Like,
Oh,
don't you love those people? How do you deal
oh,
with that resistance and go, you know what, darn it, I'm going to keep on keeping on?
yeah. I love those moments because I believe it's that individual's or that group's opportunity. No one makes you stay in a job, right? When I
Mm,
became the CEO of the TRA, I certainly had people that were very unhappy on my team.
hmm.
And so in my first 2 weeks, I met with every single one of them. And some were very, very clear to me that they were not happy I was there. And I simply said it with as much grace as possible. I will never hold you hostage in this job. If you are with me for a month and you realize that you cannot accept the direction I'm headed, you don't enjoy the leadership, and you don't believe in me, I'm going to ask you to leave. I want you to do
Wow.
that for yourself because no one is irreplaceable. It can be much more challenging when someone leaves that's exceptionally good, but
Hmm.
I cannot stand drama. I can't stand negativity, and I can't stand people that constantly question any type of progress. And so for me, I am very open about it, right? Like I had a couple of those, like, hey, listen, you clearly don't like that I'm here. You are very happy with what happened in the past. So let's make this easy. Let's set a date, and I'm going to allow you to go somewhere else and be more successful. I think it's best for both of us. I can't have you be so miserable here. It really hurts my heart. And most times it's,
Wow.
oh, what? No, 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 no. We don't get to backpedal now, right? Sidewalk goes one way. You've shown me that you do not enjoy my leadership, and therefore, it's probably better for you that you're not here. Most oftentimes, those end up being an exit, a self exit, which is great. I don't think it should always be blown up on the way out the door, but
Right.
I'm not afraid to go right after that. I'm not afraid to go to someone and say, listen, I feel like you're undermining me in the background. Why are you doing that? Like, I'm just not afraid to call it out
Good
directly to
for you. This
people.
is something like I'm getting kind of like a master's class here. So usually it's like, we're tiptoeing around like the
Yeah.
bomb that is that person like that doesn't want to like move forward, but you're like, no, like just call it out. Have you had anyone that's actually done a U-turn, or most of the time, like once they're soured and they don't like adapt?
I have definitely had people do your turns. I've had both. I have to admit, I've certainly kept people too long. And
Okay.
what always makes me move faster is that everyone is watching what the leader's going to do.
That's right.
So
That's right.
everyone knows the person that's quit and stayed, right? Everyone knows. And so you might as well just take it on. I've absolutely had people. I think that if you've had a career where you don't know what good looks like, if you believe in some cases that the leader you have followed has been out for your best interest, and over time you realize that that maybe isn't the case, I've always felt like I can do a pretty good assessment when I take over a team about people's capabilities and their will, and you need both. And I think that I've not only had people do a turnaround, I've had people become remarkable leaders that were
Wow.
in. Does it always happen? No, but I would much rather try in the short term. But then if it's not a fit, it's just not a fit. And I don't think we should hide that. I don't think we should be, right? If you don't like me and you don't like the direction, then you don't have to stay, but you can't stay and behave the way you're behaving, right? So,
You have
you
a
have
choice.
both. It's your choice. Like, no, I have no bones about it. Like, thank you so much for your service, and I wish you well. But one disruptive person can destroy a culture. I have learned that. And it can be a senior leader, it can be an individual contributor, but you got to weed it out because it's killer. It's killer.
Yep, I got that. I totally get that. So kind of veering off a little bit, one of the other things I admired about, what you're doing is you guys are like really facing the childcare crisis like in your industry.
Yeah.
And again, I am not familiar with the hospitality industry as much as, you are. And I don't know if other states do this, but you have like a whole thing like on the childcare crisis and how you're helping your employees across. Because I'm sitting there thinking like, wow. And you also talk about as a secondary movement, like, tipping in your industry. But I mean, I want to focus mainly on the childcare piece because I'm like, wow, I've never really thought about that. Like if people can't get childcare, they can't come to work.
Yeah.
And I've always been so blessed that like my husband has a little more flexibility than I do now. And I've always kind of been a little bit more blessed on that side, but not everyone is. So why did you guys decide to tackle this one head on?
Yeah, I'm so proud of this work. I just have to say that. And my call is that every company, nonprofits, CEO gets behind this
Mm-hmm.
movement. Like,
Mm-hmm.
unless we start to prioritize childcare as a business community and show that it's an economic imperative, we're not
Mm-hmm.
going to make progress. We were standing a session ago. I was at the Capitol, and what people don't tend to understand about how everything works, right, is that an individual person walking in and talking to a lawmaker and asking for $100 million for childcare and then going to the next law, like that's not how the system is designed, right? You got to collect all the voices and then you have sort of this roar of people saying, hey, we need this. I got to stand in front of a bunch of childcare daycare owners.
Mm.
And they introduced me because my colleague and I, Kelsey, who believe it or not, is a brand new mother just returning to work.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible, right, to support her. And we both were like, wait a minute, we have 1.5 million employees. And the turnover in restaurants tends to be high, right? People come as their
Yes.
job, their last job. Like we keep finding new sources of labor, more, immigrant labor, more people coming out of incarceration, more young people. But what if we just kept the people we had, right? What would that look like? And we are more than 50% female and a majority are single mothers, more than 30 something percent.
Mm.
So we took a giant step back and said, what if we went at this from the business angle and said, we've got to put something in place because Texas is losing billions of dollars a year because people can't work. And then we started to get momentum and we started to have more conversations and more conversations. So we created with three other partners, which is the Texas Association of Business, Early Matters, and Texas 2036. And we said, let's build a business coalition and go to the legislature with one set of policies and begin
Mm.
the reforms that we need in one of the fastest growing states in the country to put infrastructure. So things that may cost money, but lots of things that don't cost money. So we
Mm-hmm.
empower employers and we empower employees. And so this is work that it's hard, right? Because it's just for some reason people are afraid to say the word childcare. Like I don't get it. Like CEOs, leaders, they don't want to talk about childcare. Like it's some type of like it's tricky, hard. No, no, we need to have a system so people that want to
I
go.
don't understand. Sorry to interrupt you. I don't understand why it's so hard to say the word childcare. I mean, it's part of life. I don't get
Oh,
it.
it will. I think I don't get it either, right? Like to me, it's like talking about is so empowering because you realize that for families across Texas and really across the nation, this is a very serious issue. We have parts of our state that have no childcare now. So
Mm.
we women are go out, they have a child. Let's just say it's the women themselves. They have a child. They're, I don't get 2 weeks off, 4 weeks off, 6 weeks off. And magically they're supposed to return to work, paying, if they find childcare, the same as in-state tuition that they have 18 years to save for. They are
Wow.
having to spend after 9 months. And then they need something that's high quality, safe, and affordable. If that doesn't exist, what's the miracle that I'm missing that that woman is going back to work? They
Yeah,
can't.
unless they have family, it's like it's game over.
It's game over. And we have this drain of talent at the highest levels because two things happen, right? Women, which is a whole nother podcast, right? We take on all the duties at home too. Not all of them,
Yes,
to be generous,
a
but 50,
lot of them.
yeah. So to us, if we can increase the number of seats, if we can improve quality, if we can get the right information in the hands of our employers, if we can create tax credits for employers that do contribute, we have a whole menu of legislative policy that we know we're going to get some things done this session, but this is part of a multi-session effort. But I think the only way it's going to work is that every CEO needs to get on board. I don't care what industry you're in. You have women and men that cannot work because there is no childcare or they can't afford it. It's just that simple. And so we have to make this a priority, no different than we do sustaining our electrical infrastructure, right? Our grid, our
Agreed.
hospitals. it just has to become something we're talking about all the time. It's not a women's issue. It is not a social issue. It is an economic imperative for the growth of our state. And so I think coming at this from a business voice has certainly helped. And then working hand in hand with our advocates who are the experts on how to educate young children has been a beautiful partnership. And you can tell Kelsey and I both, we're just so passionate about this because we know, I mean, like you, I had a husband who eventually just stayed home, but we lost his income for 10 years,
Yeah.
right? But we had
That's a
that
big deal.
blessing.
Yeah,
It's a
but you had the
huge
blessing to
deal.
do it. Yeah.
So now he's 50 something, like, what am I going to do with my life, right? It's no different. It's the female or, but
Yeah.
we know we were blessed that one of us could make that choice. For so many people, that's not an option. They're two working, income working families. And it's just women are putting off having children. There's just a lot of long-term implications to this system or this framework that's just broken. It's just broken.
So with the, I mean, obviously I can tell how passionate you are. Are you wanting to take this, like, it sounds like across industry, across state lines, like you want this
Absolutely.
like throughout the whole nation?
I want Texas to lead the way on sensible childcare reforms that work for businesses and Texans. And then, like all things I've learned in Texas, which I'm obviously from New England, not a real Texan, but my vision is that we do really smart things that we can translate over the rest of the country. That is the goal. But I'll admit it's hard. This is really hard stuff. It's hard to get people's attention on the issue. It's hard. It's just hard. And so that's why we're very upfront that it's a multi-session effort, but I have been very clear to the legislature, well, you cannot leave the session and do nothing. Nothing is no longer an option. We've got to start to move the ball forward. And I think we've given them some great ideas studying either other states, other models, but doing nothing is not sustainable if Texas is going to add 11 million people in the next 25 years, right? Like it's just
Wow.
not an option. Yeah,
Wow. Okay. So we'll definitely link to all the work you're doing, all the good work in this area. If
that's
anybody else is passionate, I'm just kind of wanting to do an all call, in the podcast. Is there anything you would recommend that we can do, like as listeners, even in
yes.
ourselves? Like, what can we do to help the effort?
Yeah, so it's called the Employers for Child Care Task Force, and I can make sure you get that link.
Okay.
You can go to that page, E4C, and look at all the work, the different, publications we've done. If you're obviously not in Texas, because you have a national audience, they can look locally in their own state, what's happening. But the first thing they can do is talk about it. Talk about that it's an issue. Talk about that we can't continue the growth that we're losing in Texas, billions a year, right? They're losing so much in their state because we don't have people working due to childcare. Even just your listeners talking about it and calling it out in their circles is something that has to be addressed, is a big step forward.
Okay. All right. Yes, definitely. I will get it from you or from someone in your team, that link, because we want to
Yes.
put it out there. And if someone's passionate about this, or let's say I've got other CEOs listening or people that are in HR that have influence, or anyone, even just like you're an individual contributor, I think that this is a huge issue for our nation.
I couldn't agree more. And again, it's economic, right? Like, yes, it's social, but it's economic. I mean, if I got into the brain development, and these are things you learn, right? Like, I go from like how long it takes to hatch a chicken to like the brain development of an infant, right? And the job I'm in. But I think if you look at what is happening to the children, like the babies, like, just the education doesn't start in kindergarten, it starts at birth. And right. And how can we positively make that impact? And I think when you have business leaders having that conversation, it just adds tremendous credibility to our incredible advocates, right? We need both together. I think I've just learned so much, and I feel like we're not only failing our kids, but we're failing our small business owners and even our big business owners. And so it's just one of those that we gotta not, we just can't be afraid to address it. We can't.
Oh, so good. I got like the chills, actually. I can feel your passion coming across this airwave
Sorry,
here.
I'm just like, what?
I love it. I just love it. I'm going to be like amped up the whole day now.
I'm flying to Midland, Texas this afternoon. So
Okay, well let's wrap this up then. Okay, so I ask every one of my speakers, and we've covered so much good ground today. I just can't believe how much we've
great.
covered. But what are 1 to 2 ways that women can be braver at work today in your mind?
Um, yeah, I thought about this too. I think the first thing is going back to sort of what we opened with, which asking yourself, why not me? Right?
Yeah.
I think that we know there's a lot of research. We get a job description for a promotion and we carefully check off what we can and can't do. And men are like, got it, apply, right? Like we don't take a step back and say, why not me? Why am I not worthy of the promotion? Why am I not right? But it's that inner realization and maybe self-reflection that you do have what it takes, but asking yourself, why aren't you worthy of that next step, right? Why aren't you worthy of putting your hand up when you think you're not getting paid enough? Why
Mm-hmm.
aren't you, right? It's just asking that question, why not me? And I think it sort of empowers you a little bit to go, you're right. I've done all the good things, right? I'm smart. I have the right
Mm-hmm.
relationships. I've delivered. Why not me? And that gives you that motivation maybe to put your hand up. I think when you're afraid not to. And I think also being brave at work, I think if you choose to be a working parent, a working mom in this case,
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to be real. I think that we're very afraid to be real at work. We're not brave enough to come in and say, you know what, I am a mess. I got vomited on this morning.
Yeah.
My hair is gray and I've penciled it in, which I am famous for because I can't get to the salon. And I'm really tired and I want to cry. How is your day going? I think I'm
I
just
love
scanning back to
it.
like a week
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
But that's brave, right? Brave is, I think about the most brave I've been is when I lost my dad over a 16-day battle. And
Ah,
I came back to work and realized that I was not doing well. And then my team sort of watched that just emotional, I would cry in a meet, like I just couldn't get through this and got, help through grief support. But I think just be real. Be brave enough. People will want to be around you and help you if you're real. And so, I have a team member who gets on calls. She has rollers in her hair, right? Like we just try
so
to keep
awesome.
it
Real.
real. And I think for women, be courageous enough. You don't have to have the perfect nails and the perfect. You've created that. You've made that self
It's
prison.
armor. It's armor.
Yes, and nobody cares. Like I hate to say that. I wore my first 10 years these two suits from J.C. Penney. They were my favorite suits. I wore them everywhere. People were like, "Oh, beautiful suit." I'm like, it was like $49 back then, right? Like seriously, and I love them. And now I'm like, you know what? I got a $49 suit on. Guess what? Because that's the stuff that doesn't matter. What really matters at the end of the day is what's in here and what's in your heart. And that's what people need to see. So don't hide behind all that stuff. Just show up. And
Oof.
take the pressure off of everyone else, right? No one needs to be next to Barbie every
Because if
day.
you're authentic, then they'll mirror authenticity back to you.
Absolutely. And you know what they'll say? Thank you. Oh, thank you. I'm taking these heels off. Thank you. Right? Nobody wants to be like that. People want to be authentic, but we self-impose what we believe excellence is like, and it tends to follow through an image, right? About how someone looks. And yes, I'm sure there's plenty of studies about that, but at the end of the day, if you're authentic and likable, people will support you. That's how it
Yep.
works. And take the pressure off the rest of us, for God's sakes.
I don't need to have, my heels and my nails.
No.
Like, I don't need all of that. Oh my God. I love how real you are. Thank you
Yeah.
for being so refreshing in this hour. So how can women connect, right? I know that you are with the TRA, right? But like, let's tell them, like, where can they connect with you online? Where can they
Yes.
connect with the TRA or any of the causes? And we're going to link up obviously everything on childcare too.
Wonderful. Yeah. And the best thing is obviously LinkedIn, right? So
Okay.
LinkedIn, it's Emily Williams Knight, EDD. I think I'm the only one. So would love to connect with people on LinkedIn, even if it's just to talk about the podcast or even just to talk about life. And then we're txrestaurant.org is our restaurant association page. And so people are welcome to see the work we do. And if you are, maybe you're in this industry and you're thinking about you live in Wyoming, I'm also happy to make the connection to your local
Mm.
association as well. And then the childcare work, we would love support. Like this has to be a movement. And so I know my team can help make sure we have the links to the E4C. And really it needs to be a movement, right? It needs to be everyone coming together interdisciplinary to say, hey, we've got to make change.
Mm. Well, thanks for making my day so much better,
I
Emily
love this.
Williams
This is
Knight. It's
really fun for
so
me.
fun. So, so fun. We could hang out. I know we could talk for a while, but we're going to
Yes.
spare everybody. We're going to end here. So bring that grit and thank you so much for the work you're doing out there. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Well, that does it on my discussion with Emily today. I hope you found our conversation valuable and inspiring. Until next time, here are two questions to journal on or ponder. What is your reaction to our discussion on grit today? How can you hone your personal and professional grit? As a reminder, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts and Spotify. The show is also available on any other podcast platform you enjoy. Until next time, show up, possess grit, and be brave.